While you kids are playing your dang VR video games, be sure to keep your balls clean. Luckily, Bad Anime is sponsored by Manscaped. Use our code BAD20, that's BAD20, at checkout at manscaped.com for 20% off anything on the website so you can keep your balls clean while you play your games. Now let's all play the game of life. This is Sword Art Online.
It's bad. Anime.
Hello, everybody. My name is John.
And my name is Rob.
And this is Bad Anime, the show where we decide, is this anime bad? And today, we're talking about quite a contentious anime, from what I've been hearing, at least all over the internet, for years.
I've been hearing a lot of that in person since this show came out. Should we just kind of go in and say what the hell we're watching today? Or what we've already watched?
All right, so we're watching Sword Art Online. Or we watched Sword Art Online. Yes, the whole first season we watched 25 episodes. So just pulling back the curtain, I suggested this one to you. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why. I think I saw, you know why I think I suggested this one? Because I was at Anime NYC a while back.
Right.
And I saw a big activation there from Aniplex. And I was looking around and I was like, oh, what is this? It looks dumb. And it looked like it was Sword Art Online. And I said, it was either Sword Art Online or Rising of Shield Hero. They both do the same thing for me in my brain.
Sure.
But I saw one of those, and I think it was Sword Art Online. There was like a movie or like an activation for it for a next season or something like that. Because
they have a movie just came out, I believe, in October. And that would have been a month after. So that it's probably for the movie, which we'll actually talk about kind of the concept of the movie because it's kind of relevant.
Okay, great. I didn't even know that. That's great. But I went to the activation and I walked around there and it was carpeted. The carpet was very nice. I didn't really pick up anything else other than how nice the carpeting was. But I looked around and it seemed like a lot.
Down the entire time, just like, wow, look at this carpet.
Maybe I did. I like a rug. I don't know. I'm a Turkish man. I love a rug. I can appreciate a soft rug now and then.
I thought you guys like Ottomans.
Yeah, we like Ottomans. We used to be the Ottomans.
Thank you for tying that together.
But anyway, yeah, I was walking around and the rug was nice. It was like pink and purple or something. It was cool. And I noticed that a lot of other people were just around. And I said to myself, wow, okay, Sword Art Online seems to be pretty popular. I've heard a few things of it. I've heard a lot of debate mostly of whether it's shit or not. Most of what I've been hearing is that the first season is actually very good and the rest of the show, they just completely drop the ball, which I think we can experiment with that today. Rob, when's the first time you heard about Sword Art Online?
Good question. The first time was probably around the time it came out. I was within my first prime of weebdom, up from like 2010 to 11 up until maybe 13, 14, somewhere around there. And then I dropped off for a couple of years. SAO was just coming out and people were talking about it. I remember being at Comic-Con 2012 and 13 and seeing, this is back when Anime NYC didn't really exist. Comic-Con just had a much larger anime presence.
That's right. It was like morphed together, I remember you saying.
Yeah, and and it was just so funny once I started watching the show. I'm like, oh, I recognize these characters from all the cosplay and all the merch stands and all the everything with being an anime fan in the past, 10 years or so. I've been aware of the show. I've always seen the characters who I now know, kind of. So I just remember seeing a lot of them. And it was in the back of my head for a while. I've had some people tell me, oh, totally watch SAO. And then some friends saying, you don't need to watch SAO. So that immediately, made me curious where I'm like, why are people so torn up about this?
Yeah, there is quite a back and forth, like a ping-ponging of people liking it and not liking it at the same time. Even even videos that I've seen on it have been like very in between. I feel like nobody can give me a concrete answer on exactly what the idea is for the public opinion, which is, I guess, why I found it so fascinating that I wanted to bring it up. And I didn't realize that it was 25 episodes in the first season. I thought it was a solid 12. So I said to you, oh, yeah, why don't we watch Sword Art Online? You were like, yeah. And I looked at it and I was like, oh, maybe maybe we shouldn't watch Sword Art Online. It's pretty long, and we have a lot of other stuff to get to. And then you, thankfully, said, no, let's do it. And you know what happened after that, Rob?
Well, for me personally, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, well, because I've just been relentlessly booked the past couple weeks. Mainly just the 9 to 5, and I've been in the studio a lot lately, just banging out a lot of recordings. And I'm like, wait a minute. I have like 3 days to watch Sword Art Online. But here's what I do. My brain works in a very interesting way where if you give me let's say if you give me 3 days, let's say, let's see, if I do the math in my head, let's say 20, 25 divided by 3. I don't know what that is off the top of my head.
That doesn't exist.
It's something like 7 or 8 episodes a day, probably.
Something like that. Yeah, probably.
That doesn't exist.
It's a number that I just can't give you right now.
That's not real.
It's not real.
You just math class. You just rejected the entire concept of math there for a moment, and I'm very happy you did.
I've been doing that for my entire life. In math class where they're like the answer just DNE, it does not exist. Like that's an answer that does not exist. It's like a 7.34 something probably. I don't even know. I'm gonna do the math right now. Actually, continue explaining.
I don't know why, but I just imagine you in back in algebra class looking at the paper, going, "Fuck this."
That is essentially what I did at I took like the AP calculus test, and I had one of those like TI-83 calculators,
right,
that we were all forced to buy for like $80. And I got it, and I brought it to the exam, and on the last 3 questions I just didn't know any of them because it was word problems, and I read one and I was like, okay, well at least I can read it, but I can't do the math. And then I read the other 3 and I was like, well, I can't do those either. And so then I just left the testing grounds, and I just left my calculator there, so I just never saw it again. That's $80 that I'll never get back.
Oh, that is funny.
Wait, so you said 25 divided by 3?
Yeah.
That's 8.33333333. So it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. But anyways, yes, 8 episodes a day, you were saying.
Yeah, so that's not how my brain works. I'll say, all right, 8 episodes a day, or I could watch 12, and 4. That because in my mind. But then I didn't do that. I watched 12 and 15. 12 and 13, I think.
13.
And then I'm like, oh yeah, then I'm done. So I did that. So I watched the entire show over the course of 2 days, and it definitely shaped my opinion in the show, but not in the ways one would typically expect. So, but I'm gonna get to that more so when we talk about our feelings and opinions on the show.
Gotcha.
But first, I would like to get to what this show's actually about, because thankfully, I didn't realize how little about the show I actually knew.
Me too.
All I knew was
barely knew anything.
All I knew was they're in a video game. That's all I knew. I didn't know the stakes, the setting, the setup, really any of it. I didn't know a single character. I have watched other isekai after this, and now I do know. So I'm like, okay, now I know this character, this Kirito guy, our protagonist. I've seen you before.
All right, I have a big question about anime protagonists. Why do they all look the same and have the same color hair? They always got like this grayish blue black kind of hair going on. It's been so simple, and I could just be picking up on this so late from everybody else because I've just been watching it, as we have just been watching just a concentrated amount of anime in the past year, and over that year I feel like almost every protagonist from any series that has little to no personality look exactly the same in this exact way. Am I right or am I wrong in your opinion?
Well, the thing is, actually, you could, especially with some of the lower end of shows we have experienced, you could tie it directly to this. That's actually a very fair argument to make, because this show inspired a lot.
So it's the root.
Yeah, this is definitely the root of a lot of stuff we've covered on the show, and a lot of stuff that I've seen that you haven't yet. In a few different genres. This is what I could tell is when a kind of a seismic shift started occurring in the anime world. Of course, but the thing is, to answer that question, let's go back a little bit. I don't know why black hair has always been so common of anime protagonists. It just kind of has been. But
I mean, it is the most Japanese hair you could possibly have.
Exactly.
Yes.
You know, they wanted to make it kind of the everyman.
Right.
And this show definitely has a lot of the characteristics where they want to make the character the everyman. He's just our dude, like I said, Kirito. His real name, I'm forgetting.
His real name is so close that it's embarrassing. It's Katsuto.
Yeah, Katsuto.
Kazuto with a Z. Sorry, Kazuto.
Okay.
Yes,
Well,
which is
well,
oh god, when I found that shit out, I was like, you gotta be, because he was grilling Asuna for being like, well, you used your real name in the game, and she's like, yeah, Kirito. Well, what's your name? And he's like, yeah, my real name's Kazuto. It's way different.
Well, I didn't go by Rob in the game. I went by Robbie.
Exactly.
How they figure out it was me?
I just want to continuously point out all day in this hour or so, I don't know however long we're going to go on this, I just want to point out the intricate details of ridiculousness that this show had when we're going through it. But you were on a track, and I want to keep you on that track. You were talking about Kirito, and you were talking about kind of the beginning themes possibly of the series.
Well, I wanted to touch more on, like, you know, the roots here of, like, anime protagonists in general, because Kirito did kind of set a pattern where he's the everyman gamer boy who saves the day.
Yes.
But another thing I have to talk about before we even get there is kind of what this show did to anime. Because even though the author of the original light novels here says, this isn't an isekai, I would like to inform him he's wrong. Because...
Sorry, sir. You, the creator of this anime and manga series and light novel, are incorrect.
You're just wrong, because this is an isekai. This is one of the last isekai in its classic form. And there's one seismic change here we'll get to more when they cover the plot.
Okay.
But
Very
no, this is totally an isekai. And many people talk about the light novel success and the anime's success, leading to the boom and tidal wave of isekai anime that hasn't really stopped yet. It's getting a lot closer to stopping, but for 10 years strong, every season there's so many isekai anime coming out. And a lot of people point the finger at Sword Art Online and say, these motherfuckers did it. So,
wow.
I've used this analogy before with a different band, but I'm gonna reuse this analogy with another band here. I compare. You could actually make a very fair comparison to this work here and the band Motley Crue, because Motley Crue was a band who were very well regarded at their time, a little divisive, but wildly popular and successful, and even more harder metalheads would go, I like Motley Crue, but they will hate the wave that came after it,
that they started.
Yeah, because they were like with the exception of maybe Quiet Riot before them, they were really the front runners of what's been called later the glam metal, hair metal movement. So hundreds of bands came out after them who, with the huge hair, big sound, big guitars, shredding out the ass, Some people love the style, some people hate it. I adore the style personally. It's just what I grew up on, and I fucking love it. You can make a very similar case here. Well, people go, SAO is pretty okay, but it led to the trash wave of isekai.
Aha.
So
that is a good point.
Yeah, and so people's opinion of the show definitely been shaped by all the things it kind of inspired indirectly. So I think getting people to be objective about this show is going to be a little tough. Out of principle, more so than anything else.
That makes a lot of sense. I think that's a great point. As I said, the thing about this is, I understand that this maybe inspired a wave of subpar isekais potentially, but I want to know, is this a subpar isekai in itself?
Which is what we're going to figure out today.
And that's what we're going to figure out. I will say, to begin our journey, I will say I do really enjoy the concept of this season of anime. I think it's particularly, I think it's stellar. I mean, the video game world thing has been done before. The VR world thing has been done before, sure. But this was 10 years ago. And I think it did a great job of pulling you into the theme of the show and the plot of the show, being that, all these characters, all these people are trying this new video game, Sword Art Online. They all have these
They
VR
said the
headsets.
thing in the show.
I know. I really get excited whenever that happens. They're like, I got to get it to SAO. And I was like,
He said the acronym.
But they put on these gigantic headsets. I forget what they're called, like a nerve gear. Nerve gear,
yep.
They're called a nerve gear, and they put them on. They're like these helmets, and you're transported into a VR universe or an MMORPG universe where you can be whoever you want to be. Your character design can be whatever you want it to be at first. And then, of course, the big bad happens where nobody can log out. And the creator of the video game, Akihiko Kayaba, informs everybody that they are now trapped in this video game and they must defeat it, get through all of the 100 levels of this certain tower and boss fights in order to be able to escape SAO. But if you die in this game, sorry, bro, you die in real life. And if anybody tries to take the nerve gear off your head, it explodes like peeps in a microwave. So,
and it will just kill you, dead.
Yeah, you'll just die. So you got to beat the game in order to leave. So you have the entire population of Japan basically atrophying in their beds, trying to beat this game. Which is, I think, an incredible concept. I really like that. I kind of predicted something like this would be coming, but at the end of the day, I was like, this is a fun thing to start with. I really enjoy this plot device, and I'm really happy.
They did here, which I really enjoyed, is they immediately added stakes because
immediately.
Because the virtual world thing has been done, but they incorporate a little bit of the Nightmare on Elm Street type vibe, where it's like, no, what happens here actually matters. Like you're actually dead if this doesn't work out.
Exactly, and you're right. They did set stakes pretty early, and I think that really helped me understand what was important for the entire run of the first season.
Right.
Especially when they're in SAO. When they move over to Fairyland, which we'll talk about in a little bit, things gets a little blurred, the stakes get a little blurred. But here in SAO, at least for the first part of the season, we know what the stakes are and we know what the goal is.
Right.
But the thing is, we talked about this over text a little bit, and to kind of put this season, or put the SAO part of this season in a bit of a nutshell, it's like, okay, I thought they could have extended that plot device for like 3 seasons. I really thought they could have extended that for a long period of time. I had no idea that it was going to end 9 to 10 to 12 episodes into the first season.
It ends, the first arc really ends at episode 14. So
14. Okay, so it did go a little longer than I thought.
But there's context here. This light novel, originally just published as a novel on this guy's website because there was some competition going on for light novels. And he said, I'll submit it. Then he learned he was over the page length. And the first light novel contains the entirety of the first arc of this anime. So it is heavily truncated because he had no choice because he wanted to enter a contest. But, he entered the contest, and then I don't remember if he won it or not, but I remember he did publish his light novel online. And it was the talk of the town. People fucking loved this thing. So what happened was, then he got the publishing deal, and then he said to himself, oh, fuck, my story's over. I've already finished, and I already had to truncate it. I guess I'll just move on. But he always felt bad about that. So what he did a few years later is he started publishing a side series called Sword Art Online Progressive, which basically it just takes the first arc and expands it. So now a side series of movies is coming out set back in the first arc to expand the story. The activation you saw for Aniplex, that was promoting the most recent film in that series, Sword Art Online Progressive.
That makes a lot of sense now.
So everyone knows the beginning of this was truncated and too short. The creator has openly acknowledged it because he's written, if I'm not mistaken, like I said, the first arc was only 1 novel. He's now written 8 more novels set in that arc.
Wow.
So he is working hard to correct his mistake.
That's really good.
And I assume just have more fun back in the SAO world, back in Aincrad. The actual like virtual world he created within SAO. So he's having a lot more fun with it now. People are, I've heard decent enough things about Progressive. No one seems to talk about it that much yet that I've met in person. But online, everyone's like, sweet, back in SAO, baby.
Because it seems like, from what I've been hearing, that things got pretty out of hand as the seasons got going and as things changed in the show. And at least this might be a small sample size, but of what I've been seeing, people have been commenting on the show's later seasons and being like, oh, they really messed up. Like, this was really good to start, and they just didn't stick to the roots of the show, and it kind of got messed up.
I mean, that makes sense, though, because he had no idea what he was doing. His story was done after one book, and this guy was a hobbyist. He had no intention of making this his living, but joke's on you, you're too good. So
sorry. Like, kind of like the creator of DBZ, who had to make Dragon Ball Z after Dragon Ball, and he was like, yeah, all right, guys, they're all aliens. Yeah, let's do that. They're not just monkeys, but alien monkeys. And there's a race of them.
Monkeys. And
this guy's name is Vegeta.
But then also Akira Toriyama is hysterical because he was so lazy. He stopped making the monkeys because it took too much time to color in the monkeys and when he drew the manga. So he stopped making the monkeys.
That's why the series that he did not front, Dragon Ball GT, brought back monkeys.
Exactly.
Which is so funny to me. But getting back on track here, what we were speaking about before, that makes way too much sense because I feel like every episode, I didn't have that context when I was watching this. So I felt like every episode that I started, even maybe it took some time, but I think with time it worked itself out. But maybe the first 6 episodes, the first 4 minutes in the episode, I was just so confused. I felt like every episode started, after the first episode at least, every episode started in a new place with new characters. Kirito is still there, right? But with just a lot of things that I had to assume happened and nothing that was actually shown to me of what happened.
Yeah, they had a lot of very quick dialogue, at least in the dub, trying to explain, like, okay, it's 6 months later. It's like, what?
Right. I see, like, the timelines and whatnot.
Yeah. Yep. Kirito, all his friends are dead. What?
What? Excuse me? Yeah. I thought, because it took place, we found out it took place in 2022, which is really funny because we watched it in 2022, or at least I did. But it moved to 2023. And I think, like, just the different episodes, especially episode 2, I think is one of the most important and iconic episodes, for better or for worse, because that is when we are introduced to our term of the week, which is beater.
Okay, if anyone was able to watch the show, hear the term beater, and not envision our boy Kirito just constantly beating his meat, congratulations, you're a little more of an adult than I am.
You win an award of some kind. We need to, like, I don't know, throw a parade for you or something. The straight
face award.
Just like everybody's spanking it in that parade. Just, just straight up cum parade.
Beaters unite.
Beaters unite. I'm sure that's a Reddit thread or a Facebook group, which I'm not a part of, I swear.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not a proud member. I wonder if our boy Cumhand Shinji is the chapter president of that.
He probably is. Wait.
Whoa!
Beater. So it's a mix of, if I'm not mistaken, beta tester and cheater.
Exactly.
And because Kirito was one of the people to beta test SAO before it came out, so he got
one
all
of
these
the 1,000 people. Yep.
Right. Got all these skills in advance, and there becomes like a little divide within the game between beaters, as they're called, and regular players, just original players. Because beaters know a little bit more about the game, know how to hack it a little bit more, know how to cheat, and basically just have a higher skill than everybody else in the game, and can hide their skills pretty damn well. So yeah, this is episode 2 is basically when Kirito meets Asuna.
Yep.
Which
our female
becomes our female lead over time. Although they really don't insert her again for a little while after that. Some things happen.
It was a nice touch.
Which was nice. Kirito goes on some adventures on his own. They
dangle other ladies in front of the audience, thinking maybe he's gonna wind up with this one.
Yeah, I was really sad when they dangled in front of us the blacksmith girl.
I thought the same.
Thank you. I was really into that. She was cool. I really dug her, and I was like, oh, this is great. I think like they could really match well. And at the end of the episode, Asuna shows up and she's like, hey, Kirito. And I'm like, damn, he's gone. He's gone already. It's over. Poor girl.
Yeah. And then at one point the blacksmith does realize that Kirito is spoken for, so to speak, and she cries. And I'm like, but you guys would have been cuter.
It was just really sad. I There also was kind of a few other characters that were introduced during this time. Klein was
Loved
introduced.
Klein.
Klein is I like Klein a lot. He's just a dude. But there was one episode where he would just kind of phase in randomly after the first episode. I thought he was going to be a more common theme, but he just kind of phased in once in a while as a supporting cast. And there was one episode.
I liked that. I
did, but he started. I think maybe this goes to my frustrations of connecting the dots on plot and also filling in the gaps, which they're doing now apparently. But there were times where Klein would say a line to Kirito. Like I wrote one down. It was in like a certain episode. I think when they're looking for Santa Claus in that one episode. You remember that?
What?
They're like, you remember they're in like the Arctic tundra, and Kirito is looking for this boss called Nicholas to get this thing to revive one of his crewmates.
Yeah.
It's definitely just Santa Claus, Saint Nicholas, obviously.
Right. I forgot about that one.
Klein bumps into him, and Klein just says to him, "Hey, Kirito, like, why are you so mad? Is it still bugging you?" And I'm like, "Is what still bugging him? We haven't seen you in 7 episodes. What are you talking about, Klein? The fuck? I like you, but Jesus Christ."
I forgot about the Nick. Yeah, I forgot about the Saint Nick thing altogether.
Yeah, Kirito murders Santa Claus in this game, so that's fun.
Well, Kirito's like pretty aggressive with the whole murder thing.
He is. He loves to murder.
Unless it's other players, he'll just beat the shit out of them when they attack him. I love. It's unfortunate though, because of the truncated nature of the show, we don't get to see a lot of Kirito's progression.
Right.
So I remember one episode. He was he met the girl with the familiar, the little dragon that got killed.
Mm-hmm.
He saved her, and he's like, "Oh shit! I wish I arrived sooner." She's crying because, oh my god, my pet dragon's dead. And he's like, "Hey, if you gain like 27 levels very quickly, we can go get this one plant on the..." And they refer to levels as floors here.
Right, yeah.
So it's like, hey, we get to floor 47, you can get this flower and revive your familiar. Everything's going to be fine. You said to get good in 3 days. And I'm like, well, this is my experience watching the show, so I relate very well to this. Fucking...
Relatable. Very relatable.
But why I try to set the scene here is eventually they get attacked, because in the game there are players who kill other players, but they get like a blemish kind of thing where
like a red dot or something.
All the players have indicators over their head. They're players. They have little green, almost sim kind of spike thingies.
Yes,
floating above their head. They're orange if you're a player who's killed another player.
Right.
It's supposed to like. I guess it was supposed to be kind of a policing system, but once they're all trapped in the game, that all kind of faded. And all the murderous players kind of stuck together. There's even a whole murder guild running around.
Yeah, there was a murder gang. I remember them. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. You only kind of remember them because they didn't have as much of an impact as they should have. But the reason I'm doing this long-winded thing here is to get to the main point, where there's this really good scene where this entire gang of thugs starts attacking. I was about to say Rio, but that's not him. That's Kirito is his name. And so they're all like slashing him, and he's just standing there tanking it. And he goes, "All right, you guys can over 10 seconds. You guys can cause 400 points of damage. I have an ability that lets me to heal 600 HP over 10 seconds. So you guys can't win." They're like, "Huh?" And I'm like, only a little disappointed, because that was a cool scene in itself. But I'm like, I would have loved to have seen more of that progression, or more flashbacks to that progression.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Like, how did he get there? How did he get that? It is a really cool scene. It's a very iconic scene in the show. Probably one of the scenes that stands out the most in terms of Kirito's a badass.
If that scene happened very early in the show, and then they continuously showed us flashbacks to him getting that strong, that would have been fantastic. But they didn't have the time. But that was a cool scene. So it just tanks all like this robbing like gang of thug players, and he's like, "Okay, you guys can all leave now."
He goes through a lot of these things in the show that I equate to side quests, and it makes a lot of sense within the realm of the show to call them that too, because I feel like every few episodes he has just a new random side quest adventure to go on that he doesn't really need to go on, but would help somebody else or would aid somebody else's struggle. Like I feel like
it was kind of weird here, because typically scenes like this are meant to kind of further the character along, especially in Japanese media that loves having Japanese fiction in general that loves having very slow builds, as we talked about on the show before. But they kind of didn't do that here. I mean, as a character, Kirito was a little more on the stagnant side. His personality didn't really change at all. He just got stronger, which I call the anime problem. When you confuse getting stronger with character development, which are not the same fucking thing.
Agreed.
However, these episodes definitely had a point. The point was weird. The point was more world building than anything else.
Yes.
To show us other characters in this world, show us other floors, show us other atmospheres, to show us
terrains.
Show us this more well-rounded world. It was kind of weird for me at first because I was expecting more character-driven stuff, but I'm like, because they weren't going plot-heavy either. They're doing a lot of world building. There's several episodes of just world building, and I'm like, okay, it I don't want to say put me off. At first, it just kind of confused me because it's not something I'm used to. So I'm like, okay, I'll go on this ride, but it really did help because as time went on, we got to meet more characters, got kind of a little more insight of how this whole SAO fucking thing works. So those episodes, those like kind of middle ones, I guess you could say, like early to mid episodes, did have a point. It just took me a while to figure out what it really was.
I think my big issue, I did really like the world building here, and I think every episode or every other episode tried to really show off a new piece of Sword Art Online and like the world and whatever it's called, Aincrad.
Aincrad,
And I thought that was amazing. Like, I think the episodes also, like, they also, whenever they entered a new town and whatnot, or whenever they entered a new terrain, they always had shots of the terrain, like not even the characters. Like, they just always had things to go to of like wide shots of exactly what you think, what you're looking at here. So they had a good way of like focusing it on the characters and what they're doing in the space, but they also had a lot of big, huge shots of like what it looks like, and the art was great. I thought it was beautiful. That was really cool. But which was a double-edged sword because I liked it a lot, and they ripped us out of it pretty quickly. And by 14 episodes, we're not there anymore. We're in a different place that we have to understand and learn the world build, kind of like how Kirito has to understand a different place and like a different set of skills and whatnot eventually, which we'll get to. But I think that was my big complaint here, is that I like the world building, and they kind of just didn't finish it, if that makes any sense.
Well, I guess the production team behind it had a very difficult decision to make. They were like, okay, do we stick to the source material as is, or do we expand the series and expand our time in Aincrad and really have fun with it?
Yeah.
Who knows why they chose what they did? Maybe they said, okay, we know the author is writing his progressive series. We don't want to step on his toes, so to speak. We don't want to basically make a new canon, so they could have done that. Or they could have said, we can make more money and more merch by getting to more characters faster, so let's get to the fairy shit. So it could have been either or.
True.
Since it's a corporation, I'm thinking it's more monetarily driven than artistically driven.
I'm sure.
So that's what could have happened there. But it was kind of weird, and that's how I found out about this whole like aspect with the author, because it was all over the comments in episode 14 on Crunchyroll.
Oh yeah,
because it was just people saying, "Wait, there's a reason, guys. Don't hate." Because in episode 14, things come to a head. I guess really the one main plot point that kind of matters through the first 14 episodes, which I like to talk about now, is kind of Kirito going off on his own, doing his own thing. He's a solo player.
Yep.
For many reasons. He was in a party briefly, but they all died in some kind of trap.
That's right. That was actually very tragic. Even though I only knew the characters for 20 minutes before then, it was pretty tragic.
Yeah, and he looked like he had kind of a thing for one of the ladies in the group. So then
Sachi.
Sachi.
Never forget Sachi.
So afterwards, he recommits to being a solo player, but then he finds Asuna again, and she's like, "Sup, bro?" And he's like, "I'm a solo player." But then,
Yep.
But then the two of then I saw it was coming. Like, oh, They're getting together slowly. The hyper competitive
Yep.
ones. They looks like they might be rivals, but they're falling in love.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Asuna is a member of this one guild. I don't
Knights
remember
of
the
the
name.
Blood Oath.
The Knights of the Blood Oath. Thank you.
Yes, it just popped into my head just now. Yeah, I don't even...
No, yeah, just popped in my head. I don't have the T-shirt and tattoo coming.
Shut up.
As you frantically cover your neck.
You haven't seen my nipple rings.
Yours aren't big enough to have those.
Touche. Touche,
We
my
have.
friend.
Don't forget, we have one friend who got turned down for nipple rings because his nipples were too small, and yours are significantly smaller than his.
And they're even bigger than mine. Yeah,
Exactly.
It was never in the cards for me.
Just
Sorry,
so
folks.
many. I don't know how. I don't know why small nipples are such a common trend in our friend group. That's kind of odd. I never thought
don't
about
know.
that before.
And I just
now-
never knew that. I just never thought that I would be at the end of the spectrum either. But life goes on.
nipples, folks. We all have them.
I have an affliction, and I'm getting over it with time.
You look really sad as you say this. Just sitting there sad, just looking at your nipples, feeling so inadequate, just like, oh. And then if anyone walks in, you're just sitting there playing with your nipples with a sad face. People are going to
It's
be
kind of
confused or delighted.
Playing with my nipples with the sad face is what I did every time Yui came on the screen. Wow. If there was one character, and I say this with utmost confidence, if there was one character that I could erase from this show, it would be her. It would absolutely be her.
You see, somehow I knew that.
I like what she did for Kirito and Asuna, bringing them closer together, but the whole mommy daddy, that needs to stop. That needed to stop right when it started. For anybody that doesn't know and hasn't watched Sword Art Online, Yui is a character that Kirito and Asuna come across in a dungeon. She's like a piece of AI in Sword Art Online.
We later learn she's an AI, yeah.
Yeah, has just grown a human form or like a player form for some reason. And she essentially becomes a familiar to Asuna and Kirito, but she's life-size. And also she accredits them to saving her, so she calls them her mommy and daddy and her parents, and to which Kirito and Asuna don't have a problem with at all, and eventually start to consider her. Yeah, they even start to consider her their daughter. I'm like, guys, you did not procreate. This is a program that you are considering a daughter.
But remember, they also had like an in-game marriage and everything, so
They did, right? Sure.
And the characters are 16 and 17, so they're young, dumb, and in love. I completely get the hyper-romantic sensibilities there. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's very childlike, and it reflects how old the character. It was a nice way to kind of ground the characters for me. Mm-hmm. Because I didn't really mind the Yui stuff at all.
Especially Kirito, I think. It was good to show that
he needed to be humbled.
of him.
Yeah. He needed to be humanized a bit.
Yeah, agreed.
That actually helped out very well. So, they're children here. They're of course they're going to be hyper sentimental and hyper romantic. Right. That's just how it is.
And there were even a few episodes where they played house.
Yeah, that's what they were doing. They were playing house. Mm-hmm. It was in those episodes I kind of liked. So I'm like, oh, thank God things are slowing down so we can actually enjoy our time with the characters.
It did slow down a little bit. They had like a random, again, side quest plot where they had to help a guy get a fish out of a lake. Yeah. Is this show Japanese? I'm not sure. But they had to help a guy fish a big fish in a lake that they needed to get out. Is this Hunter x Hunter? I don't know. Is this Legend of Zelda? I don't know. Is this Fire Emblem Three Houses where you have to fish? I don't know. It could be many things. It could be many
Animal
things,
Crossing.
but it's Sword Art Online. Is it Animal Crossing? But it's Sword Art Online, and they helped a guy get a fish out of a pond.
You look so irritated right now. You were so dismissive. Like, yeah, fish, whatever.
I was like, I get it. There's fishing. But they did that. They did a few other things, and then they had to go back to the Knights of the Blood Oath to fight the big bad, to fight the final boss, who ended up being the lead of the Knights of the Blood Oath, because he turns around at the 14th episode, the 13th episode, whichever it is, and I forget his character name, but he's Akihiko Kayaba, and he comes out and he's like, actually, guys, I'm the strongest player in the game.
His name is Heathcliff, by the way.
Heathcliff. What a great name.
Well, because the whole thing was silly to me, but they did a little bit of foreshadowing here, where because Heathcliff and I keep wanting to say Kirito have a duel, and the condition is if Kirito wins, him and Asuna can go off on their merry way, whatever. But Heathcliff says, if you lose, though, you have to join the Blood Oath.
That's
And
right.
I'm like, yes, New Japan Pro Wrestling. I know this storyline very well.
Yep. You have to join Chaos.
But it was great here what they did because Kirito lost.
Yep.
But they made it clear there was some trickery going on, and Kirito was very confused about how he lost.
Mm-hmm.
So, which was a nice little through line. And then he just turns around going, "You're a Kayaba." And then Heathcliff's like, "Well, good job, Kirito. You figured it out. Nice." And they're doing this during a raid where everyone's going to go up to find the final boss. And then, then Akihiko Kayaba just turns around going, "Yeah, it's actually me, Ryo. So we can just Kirito, we can just do this right now and just fight right here."
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow. This is a great shortcut by the author to save some pages.
It really did. It really did save a lot of pages because they just blew it off then and there. I was watching it. I was like, what? That's just because they're on level 70 something. I was like, they got 30 more to go at least. And they blew through the mid range of these levels. But yeah, when that happened, again, having no context of this entire thing, I just
we also have to go back to one really important scene beforehand, and I'm just like, because when the show tonally wise was pretty lighthearted. There was very, very little gore. There's only one scene much later in the show that was bloody at all. And then fan service stuff, there was occasional butt shots, but nothing too gratuitous in terms of fan service.
It wasn't that bad.
But one of the darkest moments came when Kirito and Asuna Kirito was like, we could very well die during this. And then Asuna out of nowhere kind of says, if you die and I don't, I'm going to kill myself. And I'm like, whoa. SAO.
Yeah. I was like, wow.
Again,
guys.
Total Romeo and Juliet vibe here.
Yeah.
But, young love, you're going to do stupid things here. But it was just so dark and out of nowhere. I'm like, because it was delivered kind of straight. Because SAO, there was also one moment much later in the series I have to talk about later, but sometimes when it got serious, it got very serious, where they would even cut out the music and it'd be very intense dialogue. And Asuna was like, "No, if you die without me, I'm going to kill myself." And he was so serious. I'm like, okay, this is getting me because now there's more stakes here. So I'll admit, I was a sucker
there was
for
a bit of that. There was a bit of that going on throughout the whole show. There was a slight disconnect whenever that happened, and I felt
but I loved it.
It worked.
I love when shit gets randomly dark for no reason.
Kirito, I remember after joining the Knights of the Blood Oath, he was just sufficiently depressed for 3 days and just didn't leave his room or something. And Asuna had to get him to love life again and shit. And I'm like, damn, I didn't see any of this coming.
I didn't see any of it coming, but I as if there's one thing that any of our longtime listeners know, I like it when anime just slaps me in the face with random dark shit.
You love a misery index.
I need my misery index. I need a show to be a certain amount of miserable for me to give a shit. But anywho, where the fuck was I? Okay, here's where I was. I got it. So
continue.
They're at the final. Our final duel is already here. But Kirito has one request. He says, by the way, make Asuna immortal in the game so she can't kill herself. And the guy's like,
yeah,
okay.
If I die.
Yeah, and he's like, okay, so he takes off his immortality. And next thing you know, him and Kirito have their duel, and Kirito, by the scrape of his nose, and by Asuna sacrificing herself. She threw herself in front of the last attack, right before it would have hit Kirito and killed him. But the genius thing is here, she's now immortal, so she didn't actually die in the real world. And I'm like, wow, that's good. That's actually pretty damn good writing.
That was good writing right there.
That was really good writing. But then Kirito just pulled through narrowly with probably 2 HP left. He kills our main boss. And then there's a really cool scene where I guess him and Asuna can kind of transport almost to almost this temporal plane, and they're watching
it's like the purgatory of the game,
and they're watching the tower crumble, the giant Aincrad, the giant architecture crumble. They see the cute little house they built on the 20th floor fall, And so it's like they're watching the life that they've lived for the last 2 years completely disintegrate before their eyes.
Mhm.
And the creator of the world's standing there going, yeah, I don't really remember why I did this. And they're like, and everyone is just like, thanks. You don't know why you did
you
this.
fucking dick.
And then they mentioned, yeah, 6,000 people got out, okay, but 4,000 people died. And you get reminded of the stakes here. It's like, oh yeah, they're all dead. And before this in the series, Asuna mentions like, yeah, remember how people just passed out randomly for couple hours and woke back up? I think that's because everyone transported us to hospitals. So I think we're all in our hospital beds, withering away. And Kirito's like, bet. We're still getting back, though. So they do?
They do?
Here's the thing.
Partially.
Kirito wakes up.
Yep.
And he starts tanking it right away. He forces himself out of bed. Is hanging on to his IV thing as he's walking, and he keeps saying, Asuna, Asuna. He's forcing himself to get out of bed to go find Asuna. I'm like, okay, not even a breath first, not even a let me regain my focus here. He's just charging into battle right as the episode ends. And of course, the only thing I thought of, like, holy shit, it's already over. Mm-hmm. Episode, that arc is already done. What the fuck? Yep. But I read all the comments, went online. I'm like, okay, I'm glad they're rectifying it. Still bizarre as hell here
that it was so fast, but I will say I did like the end of that where Kirito does wake up, and I think like something I have to give props to all across the board is animation and sound design for this season, because Kirito, like, when he gets up, he like takes off the helmet and like he's got this long ass hair because obviously he hasn't had a haircut in 2 years. His body is withered. It looks great. It looks depressing as hell, because what I really liked was that dichotomy there, because like there was such triumph at the end of like, oh, he beat the final boss, but he wakes up and he's just like a skinny twink boy with just no nutrition at all, hasn't eaten in 2 years, has just been being pumped with IV, and he gets up and he just starts going. And I was like, man, this is incredibly depressing in a way.
But also in another way inspiring. After all that adversity, he survived and he's going to keep going. See, that's where I found it a very uplifting and triumphant ending, even though, I love that dichotomy. When things are bleak as all hell, but you still have the power to say, I won't die. I find that shit, it's like inspiration porn to me. I'm just like, get to your dreams, find your girl.
Oh my God. I'm going to be the strongest.
Exactly. So that's where the Aincrad arc ends, and I'm like, okay, I guess Kirito's about to go find his girl.
Yeah, and the thing about that is, we all know she didn't wake up.
Nope.
She's still in the nerve gear. And I think I did maybe think that there was something up because we hadn't heard from Asuna yet in like the new arc. Yes. And I was like, oh, yeah, when she's gonna make herself known and stuff. Kirito's just kind of like doing whatever. And then he's kind of, well, you kind of figure it out in the intro, because in the intro, the new intro, there was like they're showing real life, and you're showing his sister Sugu, which we'll get to, and Asuna is shown in a hospital bed with nerve gear on. So I'm like, oh no, she's still in a game. Oh God. And the funny part about that is that her dad is totally fine with her marrying this other dude while she's in a coma.
Okay, this is where the show went from very straightforward and easy to follow to needlessly convoluted.
Yeah, it got so crazy all of a sudden.
So what the fuck happened is we see Kirito going to the hospital to visit Asuna, and it's like, I hope she gets up soon, because as we learned, at first there's some mystery to it. Like 300 people are still trapped in SAO.
Yeah.
Well, not even SAO, as we learn. They're trapped in the nerve gear. So what happens is one of Rio's friends from SAO in the real world.
You mean Kirito?
Oh, I keep saying it's damn it.
It is just shockingly similar. I don't blame you.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think the Japanese voice actor for both is the same. So it's
Great.
So I'm getting confused. Anyway, so Kirito, he meets up with one of his friends in from SAO, but in the real world, and he starts showing him pictures like, I think we found someone.
Yeah.
It was Asuna, but in a different virtual world. And he's like, where the hell is this? It was a new game called Alfheim Online.
Yes, Alfheim.
So Kirito's like, says to himself, okay, I have to get into that game to go find Asuna. And at first I'm like, okay, what are the stakes here? But then we learned Asuna's dad, it says, all right, weird dude with a lot of money. You can marry my daughter while she's unconscious. We'll do it in I think it's like a week or 3 days. It's like a week.
And they also explain how Asuna can consent without actually consenting to the marriage, because there was one point where this weird dude says his plan, and he tells it to Kirito at the hospital, just very casually.
Right.
He's like, oh, you're Kirito, right? You beat SAO. Congratulations. Sorry about Asuna, though. I know she's your in-game wife, but she's going to be my real wife. And he's like, well, she can't consent. What do you mean? She can't say I do. Yeah. And his plan, which the dad just surprises me the most as somebody who doesn't see any problem with this whatsoever. His plan is to make the dad adopt him as his son so they can be legally in the same family. So technically they won't be married, but they will be siblings. #Sweet Home Alabama.
We got more of that later.
We will get a lot more of that later, because they really dive deep on the family relationships, if I could say so, on this arc in Fairyland.
Well, the thing is, you could dive deep, but Kirito's sister wished he dove in a lot deeper, if you know what I mean. Like dived in real deep, because
used his kendo to the appropriate length of depth.
Okay, so what happened was
she wants him to fuck her. Just so.
Oh god. Oh, hold on. I'm gonna grab a Red Bull after that one. Pause the episode while I fucking compose myself.
Well, we'll pause.
It's piss.
Let me tell you, Rob, I have never felt this depressed in my life. But you know what cured my depression? Manscaped. And support for Bad Anime today is brought to us by Manscaped, who, as everybody knows in the world, is the best at men's below-the-waist grooming. Their products are precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped's Performance Package is the ultimate men's hygiene bundle, and I'd like you to join over 7 million men worldwide that trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with our code BAD20, that's BAD20 at manscaped.com. Join the 14 million balls out there that are using Manscaped.
It's bad.
But yeah, sorry. That got me more than I thought it would. Okay. So I knew things were up once they revealed that Kirito and her name full name was Suguha?
Suguha, but Sugu for short.
Sugu, he always called her Sugu, but Sugu. I knew things were up once it was revealed they're actually cousins. I'm like, oh god, no. Because in Japan you can like legally marry your cousin.
Yep.
So I'm like, okay, she's gonna have the hots for her cousin. But the thing is, they've been raised as siblings. Yeah. So like, here's the thing. I don't know about most people. Like, if I'm raised with someone as a sibling my entire life, and I have 3 siblings, so I can speak to this with some degree of certainty.
Mm.
If I found out, let's say like you learn like, oh yeah, they're not really your sibling, but you've been raised your entire life as your sibling. That doesn't immediately turn on sexual attraction. That's not how the human mind works.
Yes. And I will also accompany that with another point here. Sugu, upon knowing, she knows that he's not exactly her brother, and she's like, okay, well, I can date him because he's my cousin. And that doesn't make it better. That does not. So when you're talking about two people that were raised together, that's sure. Like, they're not related, but they were raised together. That's also I agree with that point. But also, it's not even that, because they are related. They're cousins, which I mean, I understand is like a theme, an overall theme in a lot of things that we have watched, for sure. It has even gone further to be a sibling thing in a lot of things we have watched.
True.
Angel Sanctuary in the first 2 minutes.
That broke the record for striving towards incest in an anime we watched
very
so far.
fast. But still, it's just so funny to me that she's not even. They're not even falling back on the plot point that like they're not even related. No, they're falling back on the plot point that they're a little less related.
Well, that's the thing though. But in Japan, that's totally okay though. So that's just some cultural difference right there.
Yeah, that is some cultural difference for sure. That is.
Yeah,
but it was just really funny to me that they just split hairs on it.
Yeah, for me, I didn't really chuckle as much because, again, the cultural difference. In America, of course, we don't allow that because we're like, wait a minute, the genes are still a little too close there. And I don't know. Even though, of course, I think it's still fucking weird, I'm like, I will do my best to respect the culture here. I'm like, I get it. That's just how their laws work. Fuck.
Oh, I mean, I understood it too, but it didn't stop me from giving a little chuckle and being like, of course, this is what we're doing right now. But,
I knew once I heard cousin, I'm like, I knew I had to shut my mind off. I was like, okay, they're gonna want to, she's gonna want to fuck him.
But regardless of
but I will say the scene I was alluding to earlier, scene where like, because it's great how this whole thing works out. I'm gonna build up to the point I'm trying to make here.
Please.
Mm-hmm. So now we actually have stakes here. Because even though Kirito can't die in this world, he has to get to Asuna as soon as possible. So he can like wake her up so she can wake up and say, yeah, no, I'm not marrying this guy. So there's our actual stakes. There's a time limit here. So like,
yes, there's like a week time limit or something.
So I was very appreciative of that because since Kirito can't actually die in the game anymore, I'm like, where are the stakes here? But they did a good job of establishing stakes.
Yes. I also want to point out at this point that for Kirito, maybe not as much, but given that there was an entire I forget an entire human rights violation with SAO and how this MMORPG killed people, 4,000 people. I mean, they do say a little something about how like the MMO industry isn't like as big as it once was, but I am just shocked to see how many people are in Alfheim at this point. Kirito, I can see an exception for because he's hell bent on finding Asuna, right? So obviously he has to do something about it. But the amount of play, even Sugu, who saw his brother all through those 2 years of him at the mercy of this game, decides, fuck yeah, fairies, I'll play an RPG. Why not? And Nerve Gear. It does. So that part is a bit weird to me, but the fact that Kirito enters the game, I get it. I get that. Yeah. But everybody else, I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing here? You're gonna die for this?
Oh my goodness!
Wow. Well, but you can't die.
They're not wearing
this game.
They're not wearing nerve gear. They're wearing like a similar product. So I think that's where like the trust came from.
Sure.
But then we learned that trust was misplaced because 300 people were carried over from SAO, like we said, into this new game by the same. It's basically this one company acquired the other, RCT Holdings. I forget the current name of the company who's running it. But so our big bad here, what he's trying to do is he's using the 300 people as an experiment to try to master human emotion and how to control human emotion, how to eliminate parts of the memory, personality, and basically reshape people into his own whim. So this whole thing is just a mad experiment.
Yeah.
What?
Sure. Yeah. To mine data, essentially.
Yeah, to mine data, exactly. So that's his whole goal. And in the meantime, and he's going to make Asuna his wife and, make a lot of money. So those are his goals. Again, Kirito, he meets some new characters along the way. Not nearly as many characters that were interesting. So the fairy world is significantly less fleshed out than our world in SAO, which was... in a way, I didn't mind too much because they also spent more time in the real world dealing with the aftermath of SAO.
Yep.
And Kirito stayed in contact with most of the people he met in the game because like these were his friends for 2 years who he's going to live or die by.
Right.
So that was actually a very cool touch.
Yes.
But we do meet characters, and we learn the busty blonde fairy he becomes close with is actually Sugu. Is actually his sister. Which
sorry.
But the one thing I
finish your
didn't get
thought.
here, because because in this game, because we forgot to mention this, in SAO originally you could make your avatar look whatever you wanted to look like, but eventually everyone reverted back to how they actually looked.
Exactly. Right.
In this game, you get to completely customize your avatar. So Sugu's character looks nothing like her.
Right.
But here's the thing I didn't get. Her and Kirito still have the same voices. You know what I mean? I know sometimes it's not easy to distinguish one voice from another, but if it's the voice of your sibling, I think you're going to recognize it out of a crowd. So that was one little plot hole.
Yep.
If they threw in like one thing, or the voice actresses in the dub and the original actually kind of changed up their voices a little bit when they're in the game world, that would kind of make sense to me.
Yep.
But still, if one of your siblings or best friends is doing a funny voice, you should be able to pick it up. So that was the only point. That's the only point of the narrative of the show where it kind of fell apart for me. I'm like, guys, come on.
Well, Rob, I'm going to take that hole you poked and gape that thing, because there is also another layer of problem that I found with that exact thing that you mentioned. And not so much on Kirito's end, but on Sugu's end, right?
Right.
So she is playing this busty blonde character. I think her name is Lifa or something like that.
Yeah, Lifa. Thank you.
And so she meets Kirito, Kazuto in real life, who was Kirito in Sword Art Online, who is a famous player because he beat Sword Art Online. And his name is Kirito. Sugu knows Kirito. She knows what Kirito is. She knows who Kirito is. She knows that Kazuto is Kirito.
Is Kirito.
Kirito goes by the same fucking name in Alpine. He's Kirito again. And no matter how you can customize your character, he's just the same fucking thing with elf ears.
Yeah, exactly.
How the fuck did she not know? Such bullshit. I was watching. She was like, oh my God, who is this guy? I'm falling in love with him. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? He's your brother. He's your brother.
This made national news.
He has the same name. The same fucking name. You know him. What are you doing?
I didn't expect this level of frustration.
Because the entire fucking time in these 11 episodes, they're like teasing it, and they're like, your brother, and she's like, I have no idea who this amazing man is. I can't believe I fell in love with my brother again in a video game. Like, yeah, you dumb bitch, that is your brother. You should have known that from the beginning when he used the same name and character design he did for the last 2 years.
Oh my God. Oh, my face is red from laughter and your face is red from screaming.
I just that was a plot hole I couldn't get over for the show.
Yeah.
Like, there was a lot of exceptions I could make. That one, I was like,
no, that was a no-go.
At least change his character design and his name.
It's something.
At least let him go by. You could have used the excuse like, oh, I don't want people to know my identity because like I was a really good player and I don't want people to like, overestimate me and stuff.
And you don't want them to connect the dots. Exactly. There was a very easy way around it.
Or to the guy that I'm trying to fuck up that's in charge of this game, I don't want him to know that I'm also in this game looking to steal Asuna back. There are
stupid.
A million reasons and a million things he could have done to not have the same exact name. And I could even let the character design go a little bit. Sure, you want to make sure the identity is the same across the board. I can understand that. His hair was a little spikier, all right?
Yes,
but
he had elf ears.
The outfit, fine, whatever. But the name.
Just change the name.
You got to change the name. Something. Just make me feel like it's a different character. Or it's the same character, but make me feel like it's a different avatar and design so that everybody else is fooled very easily that it's not the same person.
Exactly. So, yeah, there's a lot going on here.
Whew, sorry, that was my big hang up of the day.
No, it's fine. But it would have made so much more make sense because, like I was trying to say earlier, the fucking scene where because Lifa starts helping Kirito. Mm-hmm. There's a bunch of politics in the world that don't really matter.
Right.
The fairy stuff, it just doesn't matter.
There's a lot of weird stuff going on.
It's a lot of filler.
Yeah, there's a lot of filler here. A lot of information.
But what happens is, eventually, Kirito says, I'm gonna find her. Asuna. And then, of course, Leafa/Sugo's eyes go wide because she realizes, oh god, the person I've been falling with online is my brother, who I'm also falling in love with in real life. And then so she starts freaking out and crying. She logs off immediately. Then Kirito in the real world starts knocking on her door. It's like, we need to talk about stuff. And she opens the door and just pours her heart out. And there's no music during it.
Yep.
It's just the voice actors here giving it her all. Saying, like, I was trying to get over you, sibling.
Jeez.
But she's going in on it hard about her emotions. And the scene was kind of dripping with atmosphere because the sun was dimly lit as they're talking.
It was a great
the whole scene was very emotionally charged. I'm like, why is SAO doing this scene good? Like, why is this working?
Right.
Fucking entire anime based on the romance. Fucking no scene in Domestic Girlfriend was as good as this scene.
You're right. You're correct.
So I'm like, okay, points to SAO here, but eventually, to make a long story short, they just kind of do it and things just kind of work. You know, they help out in one of the side quest episodes for the fairy arc. They help out two armies, and as originally Kirito's trying to charge in alone to beat the boss, and he gets his ass whooped. And the scene reminded me a lot of Asuka getting her ass whipped by the fake Evas in the end of Evangelion, because like the drone creatures were
saw that.
The same color scheme, and Kirito gets impaled a lot, just like Asuka.
In like
so
the world tree.
So yeah, just replace the field inside a giant tree.
Right.
So that was kind of cool. But then next thing you know, Kirito gets knocked out, dies in game, but he just has to wait a couple minutes. The next thing you know, Leafa charges in. Her comic relief friend charges in. The people that Kirito gave a bunch of money to in a side quest episode charge in. It's like, we've got you. But I'm sitting there going, I don't care about any of you characters.
Yeah, I don't know you people.
Nearly as much as I did as the original arc.
Nope.
So you guys don't matter. But then eventually, we forgot to mention this entire time that God damn it. It's too early in the morning. Kirito, he has basically all his gear and stats, well, most of his gear, but all of his stats transfer over from SAO.
Yep.
And one of the items that goes is Yui.
Oh.
So he summons Yui in this world, and now she's a pixie in his pocket. And then eventually him and Yui make it to like the top of this tree in this giant fucking bird cage that Asuna is being imprisoned in. They break her out, and there's a good final fight scene between Kirito and the big bad's name in this part of the series. Yeah. So they fight. The guy tries to use admin access. There's this one really aggressive and just out of nowhere dark scene where he's about to rape Asuna. I'm like, Jesus.
Yeah. That was guys. That got like pretty gruesome at a point. I was like, oh, okay. And there was also that scene where Asuna like kind of got tentacle porned a little bit at one point.
She was about to get tentacle porned, yeah. So this later part of the series had a bunch of weird sexual stuff thrown in where it didn't before.
It did. They like ripped off her clothes a bunch of times.
There was one scene in the original arc where Kirito accidentally grabbed a boob. Yeah. And then they just said, okay, tentacle porn and what it looks like about to be full on rape. And I'm like, guys, I'm all for escalation, but you in this department you went from a 1 to an 11. Yeah, I'm like,
immediately.
She's crying and he's starting to lick the tears off her face. I'm like, oh my god,
Jesus, yeah, they really went deep. They really went far on that one.
Well, the thing is, the bad guy tried to go deeper, but then Kirito said, "Not today, bitch."
Yep. And so, he beat him up. I mean, what he did was, and we kind of maybe glazed over this, but the spirit or the program of Akihiko Kayaba is still in these games. It's around. It's like lurking. He's dead, I think, physically, but his program is still around and his
Right.
mind is still within these games. So
Exactly.
he basically gives Kirito the powers that he needs to defeat this big bad. And Kirito does beat him. And Asuna wakes up, right? And that's like the big point of it, right? And then Kirito's like, all right, I got to get to the hospital. She just woke up. So he like rides his bike to the hospital. And when he gets to the hospital, the big bad is there in person doing the thing that I thought would have just completed this whole arc way earlier. He tries to just physically kill Kirito, which I was like, I mean, you could have just done that a few weeks ago. You wouldn't even had to do all this. But he comes at him with a knife and like gets a good shot on him. Gets like a good knife on him.
Yeah, he's bleeding quite a bit. And I'm like, okay. But then we learn, because they alluded to this earlier in this part of the season, when Kirito mentally he knows how to fight now because of his years doing an SAO but now he can still kind of do it for real.
Yeah.
So he eventually fights him off, and then at one point he takes the guy's knife and has it to his neck. Yep. So Kirito's straight up about to kill our big bad.
Yep.
And I'm kind of sad he didn't.
Me too. It reeks of like, it really was a great scene because it reeked of like PTSD from being in a video game for 3 years.
Yes.
You know, where you can kill anybody and it's like, I mean, they die in real life, but like it's a video game. So there's like a detachment, right?
Yeah.
But when he's in real life about to kill this guy, I saw that connection and I was like, oh my God, like he's just like PTSDing right now. I feel like he's just going to kill this guy because he thinks it's a video game. Like life is a game.
But he's able to pull through, didn't do it. The cops arrested him later off screen from what we're told.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Kirito and Asuna reunite in the hospital. They're happy. The last episode is really just them catching up with some of the SAO gang.
Yeah. They have like a little party. It's cute. They throw a bit of a party.
It was cute. At the time, Sukoha is trying to get over the fact she still wants to bone her brother.
Yeah.
And it kind of ends on the whole... Honestly, the series just kind of ends weird. It's just like...
Yeah.
You know, it's the opposite of that fucking rock climbing show where we just watched. Where the rock climbing show just ended immediately. Abruptly. This just kind of ended and then kind of dragged for 20 minutes. I'm like, this is too much tag. This is like, a little too much at the end.
This is an ending episode. It's like they needed a conclusion episode. And I liked it to a point because there were a lot of things that I was like, oh, you know, like he spent all this time fighting for her. Like we should see them happy together and what their relationship in the real world is like. You know, we see them at school a little bit. I'm like, all right, like I dig it. You know, it didn't need 20 minutes, but it wasn't the worst. It was nice, I thought. And then at the end, I think the last scene, they're all in like Alfheim or like a different MMO, and they're like, woohoo, yeah. And I'm like, you spent all that time trying to get out of the virtual universe, and you're back. So
confusing to say the least. But then then the series just like everyone's kind of happy, and then the show just kind of says, all right, we're done now. And I'm like, weird, man.
Yeah. And I imagine for you in the 3-day span of watching it, that felt pretty weird.
Well, weird, but I was in no way mad about it.
Okay.
I was like, oh, cool, it's over, whatever. I went through a very weird journey watching this show, honestly, because at several points, I understood it. And I understood the mass appeal. Because you have to remember, I was watching this at various points throughout my day.
Sure.
When I just woke up and turned on my computer and was just kind of numb laying there watching it, I got into it. I was just kind of like, and I was just taking in the whole experience of the atmosphere going, good.
Cool.
Yeah. When I was having my morning Red Bull getting hyped, and then the fight scene would happen, I'm like, yeah, Kirito, get it! I'm like, okay, so I could see like the Shonen Bros liking it for that regard. When it was like Thursday and I got home from work and I'm like, it's time for a cocky tea. So I'm having just some whiskey in a cup, because that's what I do.
That's a cocktail.
With ice.
It's a mixed drink.
Yep, whiskey and ice, baby.
Yeah, baby.
So, and I'm sitting there having a cocktail, enjoying it too. Just like, again, it's kind of the same thing when I'm just waking up, just kind of numbing out a little bit and being like, huh. I don't want to demean the show by saying this, but it's just kind of, it's a good thing to just kind of tune your brain out and just kind of enjoy. Because when you think about it, you realize how much of it kind of is silly.
Yeah.
But then again, the whole thing is silly, but it's not trying to be super duper serious, which I really enjoyed. And I guess really, I'm gonna start getting into my final thoughts here.
Yeah, go for it. Let's do it.
You know what? I was fucking pleasantly surprised by this. I really didn't think I would enjoy this as much as I did. But you know what? I didn't love it, but I definitely didn't hate it. It's got some charm to it. It had some good, really good scenes, some good character motivations that were easily understood. Sorry. The second half was significantly better than the second. The first half was significantly better than the second.
I agree.
The second half was almost comical in a way. It kind of had. The second half definitely reminded me of Spirit Chronicles a lot, where it was charming and how sloppy the execution was.
Yes.
So it the second half of the show, I just kind of went, "What are we doing?" Right. So that would kind of lend to its charm. But overall, I'm glad I watched SAO Season 1. I'm glad I know what the hype's about. I'm glad I kind of get why people are into it. I don't know if it's entirely my thing. So I don't know if, I know there's a couple other seasons and a spin-off. Do I care enough to watch those? Honestly, don't know. But I enjoyed my time with this. It was what it was. And you know what? It wasn't bad. It just wasn't bad.
There we go. I think my stance is pretty similar to yours. We can poke holes in this show all day. It is really fun and easy to poke holes in this show.
We're going to keep doing it over the course of this podcast.
100%. For the next 3 years, it is now fodder for us in terms of jokes to make and stuff. And I appreciate it for that. The whole thing about this, I like the concept a lot. I like the first 14 episodes quite a bit. They got me a lot with the transitions from episode to episode. I felt like I was just getting thrown into something every episode that had no continuity, which, as we talked about, was a problem by design. And that goes back to the light novels and how this was produced, which I can understand. The second half was significantly worse. It was just a whole bunch of what, and it was very complicated for no good reason. And although it was that, and it was all those things, and we can poke a lot of holes in it, I really had fun watching it. I think there maybe were a few episodes where I was like, all right, this I don't give a fuck about. But there were the vast majority of the episodes I did have fun watching. And I think that's kind of the whole point of this show is to have fun, have a good time. There were some dark moments that I thought caught me, especially. There were some scenes, and sometimes Kirito, I was afraid was going to be, even though he's a cartoon, right, was going to be a two-dimensional character for the entire show. But there were really parts where, he shone through a little bit, and he actually had some characterization and personality, unlike a lot of other protagonists I've seen since this show premiered in 2012. So that was really solid to see. I was happy that he had some character progression. The characters in general. Yui just cringes me every time. But overall, I'm going to also say not bad. It was at times very dumb, and at times it did make some really stupid decisions. But overall, I think it was a really fun time. Would I ever continue? Would I go to the next seasons? No, I don't think I would ever continue with it. I don't think. Gotcha. I'm just going to be real with you. I don't think I would get anything out of the next seasons. Given that how this show is so contentious, I'm happy that we watched the first season. I'm happy that we know. A lot of accounts and a lot of people that I've talked to say that this season is the best season, and anything beyond this is disappointing, I guess, for the show. And not that I think the integrity of the show is on such a high pedestal that it should not be tarnished, but I just don't think it's worth the time to continue. So
I think we picked this perfect place to start and to leave it off.
Yes,
I think
agreed.
we got everything. I think we got everything we needed out of the show.
Everything was said, and I feel really good about it. I feel really good about watching Sword Art Online, and yeah, I could just kiss you. Mwah.
Okay, so for all the angry people in the comments, please tell us how we're wrong and should watch the rest of the show. We can't wait for all your angry emails and DMs and
send the emails
and carrier pigeons.
Yay! Thanks everybody for listening to this hour and 20 minutes. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Appreciate it, and see you next time. Bye-bye.
See you soon, Burr.
It's bad.
Wow, oh my god, what a rousing podcast of anime conversation. Am I right, my compares? Am I right, my weebdom? Anywho, yeah, you can send us a message if you want. Did you like this podcast? Did you hate this podcast? Do you want to kill me? Do you want to drench me in Calaxosaur blood and watch me drink it? That's fine. Just send us an email at badanimepod@gmail.com or DM us on our Instagram at badanimepod, all one word. You can also find us on YouTube as Bad Anime, and you can leave a comment on whatever video you want to leave a comment on. We'll read them all anyways. We don't care. I love you. Kiss, kiss.
Simple Equations Podcast Network.